The next few years of MMORPGs will be interesting to follow. The genre seems to be on a bit of a resurgence as of late, and several future projects paint a picture of hope for the tirelessly optimistic and enthusiastic MMO player base. Surely things are only going to get better, right? Today I want to talk about two projects in particular, why you should care about them, what gives them potential, and whether they will hit it off to be a real big mainstay in the genre. These are the currently unnamed Riot MMO being developed by Riot, and Ashes of Creation under development by Intrepid Studios. Let's start with Riot. Now, the first thing to mention is there isn't really any information available. We know Ghostcrawler is a leading development, of course he's ex-Blizzard and was the systems designer during the Mists of Pandaria era of the game. He used to oversee roughly half the World of Warcraft designers, including class, item, profession, PvP, and encounter teams, as well as number balance tuning. And people look back to Mists of Pandaria now in a very favourable light. Riot recently has started to become a bit like Blizzard, but people actually like them. All the stuff they put out are instant successes and create their own big fan bases. Unlike Blizzard, they had their big hit game, League of Legends, and then they've moved into other genres and have created new titles like TFT, which is an auto battler, Wild Rift, which is just a League on mobile, Legends of Runeterra is a card game, and more recently, a larger step in a different direction in Valorant, which is a mix of a hero shooter and an FPS. Oh, and there's Arcane 2, the anime inspired from League that's been an enormous success. From their existing titles, you can appreciate Riot puts effort into creating cinematics, cutscenes, art behind the scenes, and just generating hype, and they deliver on it when they do. Riot doesn't put out crap. It's like old Blizzard at this point, and hopefully the people making decisions there can continue to prove that delivering quality is best for the player and the shareholder in the end. I'm not saying they are completely faultless either, they definitely have their own issues, but I believe in Riot as a developer that can deliver quality, and that is what matters. That's why, and yes, I know it's super early to say this, the Riot MMO is a space worth watching. In terms of what the game will be, I thought initially that they would deliver a very on-the-rails, this is understood to work experience. Not anything necessarily new or groundbreaking, but a good, polished version of what works, i.e. a PvE-centric, we have dungeon and raid, WSD movement, instance PvP, we've got our storyline, we've got our questing, a classic theme park MMO, a more anime-esque stylized art direction, very visually appealing characters and loads of customization. And I know what you're probably thinking, just how many MMOs that already describes, and that's kind of the point. But this one has Riot and the League IP behind it. It would be the safe option, perhaps with one big twist on the format, such as no Holy Trinity, some kind of roster-based system like Lost Ark to encourage ults, or maybe something completely different like Final Fantasy XIV's one character can do all jobs. Well, those were my initial thoughts and what I used to think, but Ghostcrawler is pretty active on Twitter and he's given me second thoughts, that in fact Riot is going to deliver something for a more niche audience and in fact not play it safe as I thought they would, in which case I have to imagine they're going for a strong PvP angle. Nothing divides MMO players as fast as non-consensual PvP. Perhaps they do want people out in the world of Runeterra, and for it to be a harkening back to the day of older MMOs where the majority of the content was not instanced. After all, if we look across Riot IPs, everything they do is PvP centric, from high intensity reaction based Valorant to more strategy based card games. And League of Legends, in case you didn't know, already has a class and subclass system. Maybe you can choose to roll a marksman class in the Riot MMO and then you have skins for the class that are the champion with different animations and effects. Though it'll look as though you are playing the champion you like, but it does the same thing as every other marksman, such as Ashe or Vayne and so many others. There is a tank class that's divided into two subclasses, Vanguards, which are offensive tanks, they rush into the front line and engage, such as Malphite or Leona, and Wardens, who protect their allies like Braum or Shen. Mages have three subclasses, Burst Mages, who delete people like Veigar, Battle Mages, who are more close range like Vlad, and Artillery Mages, who are extremely long range, such as Xerath. I could go on, but you get the point. Maybe they do take inspiration from an already established class system, though creating the animations and design for potentially a dozen skins to all play the same and do the same thing sounds very complicated and time intensive. Though they have created a new world of characters once in Valorant, I'm sure they can do it again. Over the years, Riot has fleshed out the lore and the world of Runeterra considerably. Notably, Arcane has given us a much better look into how the regions are portrayed, what kind of themes, attire, architecture, and so on is used. There are maps of the world too, showing each faction or region in the game, such as Demacia, Piltover, and Zorn, or even the Shadow Isles. There is plenty to build a world off of here already. All in all, Riot really hasn't missed the mark on a release so far. They have experienced hands at the top when it comes to making an MMO and a track record for quality. They also have a player base that actually sees them in a relatively positive light, though it's not too hard for me to say this when I'm used to Blizzard. And while so little is known about what their current intentions for the game will be, it's hard to believe it won't be both very hyped up and given the time it needs to be a complete game on launch. Its overall success is hard to say as features are unknown, but I think Riot has what it takes to make a great MMO world. One to watch for sure, and a game I expect to talk about a lot more as more becomes known. The second game I want to talk about is Ashes of Creation, which is taking quite the different approach in development to the Riot MMO, being fully transparent and really getting a community up and established prior to the game releasing, whenever that happens of course. They do frequent update streams to show people what they've been working on, and for a studio they are, well, they're just not normal, in a good way. MMOs really drive hype like no other genre does. Putting so much focus into getting people interested and engaged at such an early stage is such a big brain move, especially since unlike Riot, they don't have a flagship IP that's gonna drive people's pre-established opinions of what they will create. If they waited till beta to start ramping up their advertisements and getting the game known, there'd just be so much less time to learn about Intrepid, Steven, and all the others working and pushing the title. Moreover, Steven himself has taken every opportunity to get out there and talk about the game, going on calls with streamers, being part of each update, speaking with community members, and every time he does, he talks about the game in levels of detail and foresight that very much lead people to believe in what he's working on. Riot has the established IP, Intrepid has their team and transparency, and I feel is something to believe in, or I trust this person to do a good thing beyond just liking the sound of what's being said, is something which many studios don't do. And whilst we know little of the Riot MMO and can only speculate, again, Ashes of Creation is the polar opposite. There is an insanely detailed wiki for the game outlining intentions for systems. Intrepid have already shared videos of many different points throughout the game's development cycle, from class abilities, character creation, panning videos of landscape, battles, mounts, and so much more. And it all looks rather impressive, even at an alpha stage. And what we do know is it's going to be a real old school blast from the past. Remember when I said non-consensual PvP instantly puts a divide between MMO players? Ashes of Creation will have open world non-consensual PvP, though they do have a system called corruption to try and mitigate griefing, whereby eventually you'll even be liable to lose gear upon death, but I'm not entirely convinced the perfect system exists. Griefers are just wired different up there. There will be ways to grief, there will be laws, there will be scams, and so on. And in some ways, those things being allowed to happen make Ashes of Creation more of an MMO where actions matter more so than anything we have seen in a very long time. And man, do people love talking about world PvP in practice, but when it comes down to it, these games always see less popularity than the PvE theme parks. As to why? Well, the question's been done to death, but to do a real TLDR on it, people don't like losing without having any chance to have avoided that outcome, which open world PvP and MMOs always achieves through player numbers, gear, and levels. To be clear, I think the game will, whenever it launches, do very well, but it's designed for more of a niche audience compared to the very widespread hype it's currently receiving due to the nature of PvP being a core part of the game. It will also have issues in terms of streaming, which does matter. Streamers are a big influence and really drive hype and eyes to a title. You may not like them, but that's the way it is. A lot of people like to watch games when they can't play, and it keeps them interested in wanting to play when they can. Many streamers left classic World of Warcraft in Phase 2 or switched to entirely instance content only. Why? PvP. Players on servers effectively filtered them from the game through, hey, it's PvP on a PvP server, and on Ashes of Creation there isn't even any factions where you can be a majority and still be relatively safe. The game will do well on non-live media platforms, but if people know your location and that you're live, they're gonna mess with you. It is what it is. That's what griefers do. This freedom to mess with other people, grief, and generally have more space to elicit negative emotions from others will be something that people will champion Ashes of Creation for, and will make people call it a real MMO, despite it in all likelihood being detrimental to the player base at large. And in some ways they're right, but it doesn't necessarily make it a game that can have very widespread appeal. And no, I don't think Ashes of Creation should change anything with the game's vision or try to accommodate any singular player. Make the game you you want to make, please. But when I think about it, this is something which I feel has to be said. Maybe the corruption system will work very well and make it so when somebody goes rogue, they carry a massive risk in doing so. Time will tell. Overall, Ashes of Creation is an extremely ambitious project that's going to take the MMO genre forwards by bringing back so many features that have left it over the years in the name of convenience. It reads like a bucket list of a guy who gradually grew disenfranchised with MMOs as they changed direction over the years, which kind of what it is. The studio's level of transparency with their development approach is both unique, fascinating, and drives so much hype at an early stage. Studio progress gives players faith and reasons to believe this isn't just another scope crept to death Star Citizen situation. Their systems are incredibly detailed and seemingly every eventuality has been carefully considered, and the world they're building of Vera really seems like a world. This game is massive. I certainly follow Ashes of Creation development and enjoy their streams, some on a class teaser when Intrepid. All the same, I feel the nature of unrestricted PvP in MMOs naturally filters many players and may make Ashes a bit more of a niche title in the long run, though I'm sure this is something which they know about and are making the game that they want to, which I respect. Both games are still years off, but both are very much still a strong source of copium for the MMO fan, and it's been a very long time since there's been two totally new IPs coming to the market and not just expansions of existing titles to get excited about, assuming they release, which they both totally will. Right, guys? Anyways, let me know your thoughts on both, what you reckon, and everything I've gone over here. As always, thank you all so much for watching and listening in, and I shall see you all in the next one very soon.